Hello, welcome to Bear Chocky T Wrestling Recap. As each and every week we get together to discuss what's been happening from the world of Impact Wrestling and AEW Wrestling. But before we start the show, I'd like to let you know all about the Jonas Podcasting Network, which currently have over 30 fantastic podcast creators, each bringing something different to the table. No matter what your preference from wrestling, whether that be weekly reviews, watch-alongs, or cracking interviews, the Jonas Podcasting Network has got you covered for everything. So, well, if we're going to get into this, then I'm missing the Jungle Boy to my Luchasaurus. Co-host for the show, Big Chocky T.
Hello, mate. I did wonder which tag team you were going to go for this week. Yeah, I did wonder if it would be. I think I maybe thought the Good Brothers, but I think we've done that one. So yeah, happy to be Jungle Boy. Yeah,
I might do Sting and Darby Allin next time.
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
So how are you doing anyway?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Yeah, coming off a really good, Double or Nothing. It's been a really good, and Impact has been a really good month of some solid pay-per-views and action. So yeah, really excited to get talking about it.
Yeah, as you said, yeah, we've got during our last, when we were recording our last show, we just come off Under Siege, which I'll quickly run through. And then obviously we had Double or Nothing. We've got Against All Odds coming up, and then we're going to look a little bit further on potentially AEW's future pay-per-views and obviously Impact. So before we start anything, I'm going to start with a somber note. Wrestling were a bit thrown a curveball this past week with the release of 6 wrestlers from WWE. Which nobody actually expected, and with the apparent reshuffle of how they're wanting to do the company, we're looking at maybe having more coming in the future. But I just wanted to get a brief rundown through the wrestlers that have been released and ask, yes, we cover AEW and Impact, but would you like to see any of these in Impact or AEW, potentially New Japan or on the Indies? Or even if it's a matter of we might just see them step away from the ring for a bit just to reassess what they're going to do. So I'll start with the main one. Your thoughts on Braun Strowman?
Oh, this is the big one for me. Braun Strowman is a superstar on a plate, isn't he? And it looked, for all intents and purposes, that they were going that way, and they did for a long time. He got a real push, a real support, and fans were behind him. He had the look that someone like Vince McMahon would crave traditionally. You didn't have to do a lot with that man to make him an absolute star, and he totally was that for a little while. In a series of bad booking decisions, perhaps a reliance on comedy sometimes, maybe even a change too much away from the character it was, and it started to look not so good. But out of everyone, that was the one that caught my eye, because I just can't believe they let him go. Really, now there's a lot of talk about why that might have been, or maybe his conduct, or maybe even what he was getting paid, and we can get into the reasons why we think this might have happened. But yeah, that's a real shock to me. And if he doesn't go, almost when his no compete clause is up, if he doesn't go, and I can actually see him on Impact. Actually, if he doesn't go there, I'd be very surprised if AEW don't pick him up. They're not short of monster characters, but he's just so, I don't know, natural, isn't he? As like that monster, so I could even see him in New Japan. Basically, I think he's got his pick. He'd be,
Absolutely, that's what I was just going to say. He would, Braun is a guy that would fit anywhere you would put him.
Yeah.
As you've just said, AEW, Impact, even if he just works New Japan Strong, which is based in America, or even if he goes over to New Japan itself or does the indie scene, there's always going to be something for him. It's just a matter of whether or not he wants, as we were just saying, whether or not he wants a break at the moment to reassess what he wants to do, or whether he wants to jump straight in and carry on the momentum so people are still passionate about him and not leave it too late so people are very much, that light has burnt now, so I'm not really bothered about him. It just depends on what he wants to do.
Has he spoken out yet? I've seen a lot of other statements from wrestlers. Have you seen anything from Braun himself about his position? Because he's been quite quiet, hasn't he, compared to some of them?
Literally, the only thing I've seen is a tweet that has been reshared, just basically saying, thank you in some words. That's it. Nothing else. And obviously, as you said, one of the stories is going around that he was getting paid $1 million a year, which is a stupid amount of money compared to what other people are doing. However, he was being used the way that, I mean, if you were paying him $1 million and having him sit at home, then that's daft. But the fact that he's been a front runner and the main event star for the last 6 to 8 months, if not all the way through the beginning of the pandemic, running side by side with Drew McIntyre, and his contract was going to be ending, would run up in, I think it was 2023 as well. Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
So they've really cut it halfway down his contract.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bizarre one. Obviously, we go on what we get told. No one actually really knows unless you're behind the scenes. But as you said, no matter what happens, he's going to be really good wherever he goes. Next one, Ruby Riott.
She seemed very beloved by everyone, from what I've seen in the cast, and she had obviously quite a unique kind of and good personality, and what WWE needed was a bit more like that, a bit more color in what sometimes can be like a bit of black and white world there, and I think I really liked her character. So again, I don't see it being that long, and this one I do see him being AEW. I still think their women's division needs that strengthening. We talked about possibly the Iconics appearing at some point. I could see Ruby Riott appearing in AEW, actually, to be fair. I think she'd be a good fit for that. But she seems to have a lot of love and support, so I'm sure she'll she'll do well. It's difficult for me because I haven't really followed the WWE product particularly closely for the last couple of years, so it's hard to know really what the perception was of us there. But all the way back to when she was in like the Riott Squad, for me that was good. I enjoyed seeing that on WWE television. So I can see it coming in maybe as part of a stable again in something like AEW. What's your thoughts on that, John?
Again, she was well loved. She got on with everyone. She was fantastic in the indies as Lovelace, and I can see her working really well with both Impact and AEW. I mean, she was big on Evolve. Even to a push, you could even, depending on which way they go, you could even see her going to Stardom.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
She's got that colour, the tattoos, the alternative look, which would work really well in Japan, and again would work really well. Sorry, in Impact and AEW for the diverse array of wrestlers that they've got. So again, as I said, I don't think anyone will be short of work regardless of what goes on. Biggest one that I could think of after everything that they've been doing with him, Tommy, also known as Alex.
Tommy End, I was going to say, obviously really well liked, especially it seems amongst the wrestling community. We've seen on our own social media feeds a lot of people we know, a bit of an outpouring of grief, but also this idea now that he can be free kind of creatively. He's obviously got a very smart mind. He's obviously like a Bray Wyatt. I imagine he has a lot going on up there and always has like a plan for himself as well. So I can imagine, he'll bring that to, again, any of these companies. It's difficult not to kind of go straight to AEW. That's only because we've seen so many recent talents appear there, but it doesn't mean they have to. We've seen it happen with Impact as well. New Japan, I'm not so sure with that. His character, I'm not saying it wouldn't work over there, but I think it's quite suited to a certain type of fan that seems to really embrace that over here. And he again maybe go back to the indies for him, build a name for himself. Weirdly, I don't see him possibly not going back there either, though. There's certain people that you could see, maybe even like Braun, that might even return to WWE. Now, we've seen it happen so many times, haven't we, with McIntyre being a great example. So for him...
MVP.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how many times have we seen this? So for him, weirdly, I see him always, doing the McIntyre, stepping away, doing the indies again, and then coming back. But his character is already very strong, so I don't think he needs to evolve that character at all. Maybe McIntyre did, difficult for me to place him, I would say. What's your thoughts?
Same. I think if he stepped away from the main three, I'd see him going back to WXW down in Germany, doing the indie scene. Obviously, he's worked for Progress in the past.
Yes.
He's worked for ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling in Scotland. He's part of the Death Squad with Michael Dante, which was a fantastic tag team. Sumerian Death Squad. My apologies. Give it its full title. Sorry, but yeah, you are right. Once they sort everything out, get everything sorted, there's a possibility it could go back. I mean, we've already heard that Selena Vega, former Selena Vega, has been at the Performance Center filming stuff. Now, whether or not that was to do with part of his story, whether that was to do with something else, we're not too sure. Whether that was to do with her coming back, honestly, don't know. But yeah, you are right. I think the one you would always say is like, oh, they'll be really good in AEW. Yeah. You can say that about everyone. Yeah. However, you've got to be careful with the amount that you're bringing in, because not everyone is going to have TV time. No matter whether you say, well, they've got all these new shows coming on, that's fine, but you've still got a big enough talent pool that doesn't actually need these people that we're talking about. However, it doesn't mean that they won't accept them. They won't, they'll take them as part of their roster, but you've already got quite a big roster to start with that you don't want to overfill it. Sorry, otherwise you're going to end up being WWE again. Yeah, and that's what everyone's kicked off about.
Yeah, and that was the problem in the first place. Too much talent. I heard it was over 300.
Yeah,
like people they could have used. That was exactly the problem. You're spot on there, Michael. I don't want to see that happen to people. I like the idea of them having like jobs and paid, getting paid, especially during this pandemic still, which is ongoing. Yeah. But also, like you've not really seen it so much for Christian Cage, but you want everyone to come on and be strong straight away and be like championship contenders, don't you? But they can't all come in that strong. They really can't, and there's only so many belts to compete for at the moment. And I don't want to see just belts introduced just to have people chase them. So it's tricky, isn't it? I do think Aleister Black is someone who could be brought in and based on his character work. Yeah, he doesn't have to be chasing a title per se, and he does bring something a bit different. Plus, he's got these, it's nice kind of MMA and like karate, like moveset. He is different, and I do think they could use him as an asset. But you're quite right. There'll be a point at which AEW becomes, if it's not already, full up really, of people jumping ship.
Have you seen the tweet from Dark Order's John Silver?
No.
He's turned around and said, "We had a leader. We don't need another one."
Exactly.
People are already saying, "Oh, he'd be really good at." No, nothing can replace. We can't replace Brody Lee. We're not even going to even try. We're happy as we are. We had him. That's it. Bottom line.
They don't need it now, especially now that they're like faces for now. At least they don't need that leader. And you're right. They'd be disrespectful.
Yeah, you're correct there. They don't need that leader anymore. They've evolved into something different that's worked for them. Whether it be if they stay the comedy type of daftness, that's fine. But it works for them because that you can see it in them when they're wrestling. You can see it on their promos that they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that they're getting TV time as well. He's really, really good. So, right, I'm going to jump on to another one. Buddy Murphy.
This one hurts, actually, because he was really good. You know what I mean? He was really good. And I saw this tweet saying, like, there's every chance he could go on to be one of the best in the world now. And let himself grow and stuff. It's always been great. When he was teaming, back in the day. And then he moved on. The association with Seth Rollins was actually quite good as well. I thought that allowed him that time to really get that exposure and have that experience next to him. And then, he looked like he was possibly on the verge of something good. He's got a good look. He seems very relatable as well. I could see him as quite a good kind of face, like challenger for... I guess even like maybe something like the TNT or the X Division. I feel like he fits in these areas, in AEW or in Impact respectively. He again though could go out and change himself completely and come back. But he really did seem like he hadn't had his time properly yet. You could argue Braun had his time and Aleister Black had admittedly had some time. We're the same. So it's a shame with him, I think, because I really feel like he'd done great work and he probably didn't deserve to be let go. And it's difficult to believe that even he would have been on that much of a wage either, you know. So yeah, that one is a mystery to me because I really could have done something.
They're already saying, why don't we get Murphy versus Omega for the fight off for the V triggers and all, and fight of the knees and the kicks and stuff like that, which is quite intriguing. It'd be quite cool to see on an independent scene, but I don't know whether or not, or even like they did with various wrestlers in the past, over the past 6 to 12 months, where they bring them in for like just a couple of episodes and that's it. Like how we see with New Japan, with Impact. So there's potential that AEW could have these people in, whether it be full time or just for a stint. But we'll have to wait and see. The one that stands out the most that I think will go to AEW, Lana.
Yes, yeah. Again, the women's division, I still think it needs more talent. You know, they've got a lot of very talented women on there, but they need some more personalities. And whatever you think of Lana in the ring, can't deny that in the early days when she was the supporter of Rusev, and we'll get to Miro, you know, she was a real personality. And there's that obvious connection there. There was that brilliant tweet that went out and she went, well, it's just a coincidence, but congratulations to my husband. He's like, I thought it was strange. I've been wearing a title to bed. You hadn't said anything, which was brilliant. And those two, you can tell, are naturally quite funny together. You know, Miro right now doesn't need anyone with him. It's the wrong time to have that. He definitely should be a lone wolf because he's just got rid of Kip Sabian, you know. But yeah, I could see her perhaps coming in later down the line, or even being a talent in her own right. But yeah, I do think she's got a lot of personality, so she could do.
But like as you said with Miro, he doesn't need anyone at the moment. So even if it's a matter of she doesn't need to be on the TV. She doesn't need the spotlight. She could do, you know, she could do other things. She's already promoting on. She's already doing sponsorship promoting on Instagram that she's been told off various times by said company. So she's marketable no matter where she goes and whatever she does. She might not even, as we talked about with Braun, might not even go into wrestling. Might go down the route of being a spokesperson or, you know, a face for a brand or a spokesperson or any. You don't know, but if she was going to go into wrestling, then I would say that go back to school a little bit more and allow her to learn more than what WWE have, because they won't even know what they always say that you have to wrestle a certain way, which is fair enough, but not everyone does, and not everyone is given the ability to. And she's one that hasn't. She's done so well for herself to get to where she has, but then basically been roadblocked and said, no, we're not wanting you to do any more. And then lastly, we've got Santana Garrett, who was very big. She's been in the Mae Young Classic. She's been signed to NXT. She hasn't really done much other than appeared on a couple of a few house shows, a couple of TV tapings. But she was very big in on the women's division around America and on the indie scene. And obviously she was being lined up for a role to go further to progress her career on to SmackDown, but then was released. So I don't know if you know much about her.
Not really, to be honest. No, I don't.
Well, as I said, she's fantastic. She's a fantastic wrestler. She's just never been given that signing to progress and to show exactly the world what she's like. She's worked around the world. She's done very, very well for herself. And obviously, like a lot of people, the chance to work for a said company has always been very, very good for her. And obviously, she shined on the Mae Young Classic, but it unfortunately wasn't to be. So So as we said, I know we don't have much sway, but hope everyone that we've just spoken about is all right and gets what they need and does and finds happiness wherever they are. So sorry, that was a bit somber. I do apologise. Right, so we'll get into the main bulk of the show. So since our last show, as we said, we've had 2 pay-per-views. We've got a pay-per-view coming up, and we're just going to go through with what happened. So for Impact, we had the Under Siege show around about 3 weeks ago, which was again another belting show. Impact still knocking it out of the park with the shows. Yes, they're not in front of a crowd, which they will now be in front of a crowd for the first time at Slammiversary, selling out. All their tickets were VIP, selling out in 20 minutes, which is just, yes, there might be a capacity of 200 to 300. Doesn't matter. The fact that you've sold, yet people are still invested in your show.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter whether you sold 10 tickets and you sold out. The fact that they've sold out in 20 minutes with a possibility of more tickets coming available is fantastic. So hats off to Impact. Very, very good. And hats off to everyone who wants to go see Impact, because clearly it is more eyes are getting on it, especially with this open door, or forbidden door, should I say. So yeah, Under Siege results. We started off with Myers beating Black Taurus by cheating. Basically put a thumb to the eye and hit the roster cut for the win. So he's carrying on the heel persona. We've recently just seen him take out his best mate, and he's going to be out for 3 months now. Matt Cardona, who has now got a fractured orbital bone. So people will remember that. If you are old school, you'll remember The Undertaker wearing his Phantom of the Opera mask in the mid-90s, and that's basically what he had the same. However, he was able to carry on. Matt Cardona's taken a step away and getting himself sorted. So, yeah, all the best, and hopefully we'll see you soon, Matt. The team of the returning Taylor Wilde and Tennille Dashwood defeated Susan and Kimberly in a standard women's tag match. But when I say standard, I don't mean it's bad. I mean all their tag matches, all their women's matches are at a level where they are just doing so much good work that the level of quality from them is just so high now. Each and every week on pay-per-views and on Impact shows, I don't think I can actually sit there and say there was a bad match, and this shines through. So yeah, continue. However, Taylor Wilde wasn't really wanting to be Tennille Dashwood's tag partner. Tennille wants to be friends, and she's not really wanting to be that, but she's going along with it and allowing it. So yeah, we shall see what happens with that. The team of Ace Austin and Madman Fulton became the #1 tag team contenders in a fantastic match. I'm not going to go through all the match itself, but all I wanted to do is say you need to go see it. Same with the main event. You need to go watch it yourself, because me going through it, saying bit by bit, can't do it justice. It's just an epic tag match. So please, as I said, go watch it. Very, very good match. Former Big Cass, now W. Morrissey, beat Willie Mack in a hard-hitting match. Again, Morrissey's continuing the storyline that he's going to inflict the pain onto others that he's felt over the past several years. He's using it as a momentum to go through the roster, which, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
He's recently just done an interview. Obviously, you can pick out what he may be trying to imply, but they're not actually saying it there and then. I think what they're doing with it is good enough not to say it's a direct shot at another company. So carry on with that. However, after the match, Morrissey continued to do the beatdown, and we saw the return of Rich Swann to come in for the save. Morrissey ran to the back, and yeah, Rich Swann came back to do the save for Willie Mack, which was a very nice surprise to see. The tag team champions for the Knockouts division changed hands again. Fire and Flavor regained their belts from Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellorin. Now, we've seen over the last few weeks since then, there's been some kind of dissension. They've had a recent rematches where they've lost. So obviously, Fire and Flavor have kept the belts. So the miscommunication, mistime, and everything like that. Now, potentially it could look towards a heel turn for Jordan Grace, but they're not pushing it. So it's that whole dissension. Do you remember when Omega had that match with I'm trying to remember where he picked up the table or chair and he was about to. Was it Hangman?
Yes, it was Hangman.
Think that basically he wasn't actually. She's not actually going to do anything, but there's a glint there that potentially that she might get annoyed down the line with Rachel Evelyn trying to use Jordan Grace as a stepping stone to get further down. Further up the ladder towards the Knockouts Championship. So, but we shall see how it goes. Again, it's a very good story, very good women's division. Again, great wrestling.
Yeah.
Speaking of great wrestling, Walking Weapon Josh Alexander retained his X Division Championship against El Fantasma in what was a fantastic X Division match. Now, the only issue I've got with this is that we've not seen El Fantasma afterwards. Again, we're going to talk about something that I'm going to bring up later on down the line about somebody else. Now, obviously, you've got the New Japan Strong going on. So is that it for El Fantasma? Will we see more of him? We don't know because, again, we don't know the ins and outs of the contracts, whether it's 1 or 2 appearances just to pepper the sprinkling of, people can come and go. I'd like to see El Fantasma again because I think he'd bring something really good to the X Division. Now, I know you're a huge fan, like me, of El Fantasma. What would you like to see, or what did you think of the match?
Yeah, it was a really good match. It was the right result. He's a great X Division champion. And yeah, you couldn't really have had El Fantasma come in and run away with that belt, mainly because of what it means to Impact, I think. I've seen today they're looking to possibly build a real division again around the X Division title and bring it back to the heyday of when it was, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, etc. And that, as we've often said, was one of the highlights of Impact or TNA back in the day. So yeah, I think it's a good champion to build it around. So really, they would keep that belt. It was a really good match. I mean, my only thing, with some of these people coming in is that they don't need to necessarily give an explanation because everyone kind of understands about the Forbidden Door, etc. But I could have done with I'm here, I've been granted 1 shot at this title, and I'm going to take it, and like to then leave again. You're right. Okay, well, fair enough.
Yeah. Then that door is open. I'm stepping through it. I'm going to take on you. Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea. The door is open for us to come backwards and forwards.
Yeah. And if I get it, feel free to come and get it, if you don't want it. But like, you're not seeing enough explanation. It's only really Tony Khan talking about the Forbidden Door, isn't it? And I could do with this talent saying, like, you didn't hear a lot from Kenta. Finjuice, I don't know if they've really explained it, but sometimes I think it's almost as if it's happening, but no one really is talking about it, and like you saw Moxley defend his IWGP US title recently, and again, that had a good like promo package, but yeah, it's almost like they're keen to avoid, I suppose, the like us versus them and focus more just on the talent rather than what it means between the two companies, which might be worse, but yeah, so I'd like to see him a little more just to explain that like he was just going to come here, this was his 1 shot for now, to come and get it, and he's failed, and just to say like, if you want to come and take me on my home turf, then we'll see who wins or something like that, just to give it that bit of continuity, because it's strange, isn't it, just to do right, we'll see you later then, that's it, bye, fantastic, like, but yeah, it doesn't have to be a permanent fixture, but you just want to leave it open-ended rather than seemingly just that's it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I agree.
I agree with that. Yeah. I like that. It's just the have some consistency and just not just one-off shots, because there's no point in having that door open. Now, obviously, is this because of the apparent talk with said company?
Yeah.
We don't know. Obviously, we know what we're fed.
Yes.
But it's got to be, especially now, it's come out. It's got to be very at the back of the head of Tony Khan and Scott D'Amore and everyone like that, with the whole thing of, what we're trying something and they're now trying to take it over. But we'll see. We'll see. Deonna Perez stayed Knockouts champion as she defeated Havoc. However, she did have help from Kimberly and Suzanne were at ringside. Again, she's continued to be that dominant champion since she stepped foot into the Impact Zone, and every match she's having, no matter who she's having it with, are fantastic. She's able to. To be honest, she doesn't need to lift anyone because everyone is very good at what they do.
Yeah.
They just, both of them just step up that next level. And yeah, she's continued to be a fantastic champion. I'll be very interested to see when and if they take the title off and who will take it. Because of the aura she gives off and the direction that the company might want to go. They might want to keep it on her for a while because everyone is more like, you've got the Decay, you've got Havoc, who are very dark characters. You've got Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering, who are potentially your next contenders down the line. But obviously we've seen Jordan Grace have that title match before numerous times, so maybe it's someone else that we could see. Again, it might be someone that we're waiting to come into the company, like a Chelsea Green. We don't know, because obviously we don't know where she's going yet. If she's going anywhere, and there's been no rumblings, but we'll have to wait and see. But again, I
was just going to say on that, like, you're right. Like, it's almost a case of why take it off her if you don't need to. You know, you don't need to have a title change. You can just keep going. If a champ is popular and the fans are happy to see them as champ and keep defending their belt, just keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're built, aren't we, to think that titles have to change, you know, but I love a lengthy, long reign. We've seen that a lot in AEW, especially with the women's belts, to a point. You know, you don't need to just have it dropped, you know, just for no reason, until a worthy challenger comes on. And that worthy challenger is going to possibly be, like you said, someone probably that isn't there yet, maybe, you know, because otherwise you can feel like you're just rotating around. They build themselves up to number one contendership, they lose, and they repeat the cycle. So maybe what you need is more of a storyline that's less about I'm challenging for the title and something more personal, you know, someone from her past, perhaps, you know, someone that could come in and challenge her on a different level, not just I want to be the best, but I'm here to take everything you've got, Deonna. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I'm just thinking
you've wronged me, so I'm going to take it off for you.
I think after a while you can't just have I'm the champ, come and get me. You need something else there, don't you? But like, she's a really good champ. She's pretty much got it all. So still young, she's got a good look for it as well, you know. And there's no reason why she shouldn't just keep carrying it on. I guess don't just offer. But who that will be, I don't know. You know, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because it can. A lengthy title reign does no one any harm, I don't think. Ultimately, it only makes the next champion more prestigious, doesn't it? You know, so
as we knew it, as we know when we talk about Double or Nothing in a bit. But you are right. And obviously, if we continue, it's the only thing that is lacked is the interpromotional women's side.
Yes,
which would be quite cool to have. You know, like you've got your New Japan coming in to face people in Impact. It'd be quite nice to see, even if it's people that aren't pushed much on Dynamite, come through and get their get elevated a little bit on Impact, just so they get TV time. There's nothing wrong with that. But as you said, it's hard to use the same people over and over again. And it worked very well in the 80s and 90s with long reigns. You don't have to see the champion on it every week. It builds to the mystique, and it also builds to you want to see that champion getting beat. So we shall have to wait and see, as I said before with the others. But as I said, we've got some really, really good talent at the moment. We got a surprising win. As Eddie Edwards and Finn Juice defeated Omega and the Good Brothers. As ever, this was a fast-paced, hard-hitting match, with everyone having time to make their mark, take control of the match. And the finish came when Anderson took a Boston Knee party from Eddie Edwards, and Eddie Edwards would get the pin. I was surprised at this, but then it was also quite nice to see that, if you want to call it Elite, the All Elite group wasn't running roughshod all the time. It was actually quite cool. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I'm actually not that surprised because I think they needed a win back, didn't they? The Impact team have lost quite a few matches now against this super elite team, haven't they? And obviously one of the big ones being Rich Swan's big loss. So they needed something back, and of course, what they've done there is protect Omega and let Anderson take the fall. So it doesn't really matter, does it? Because you can see the man himself hasn't been pinned there. And those Good Brothers are there in some capacity at the moment to just be those. I mean, we'll get onto this maybe, but I actually feel that they're probably not being used enough. They're having a lot of fun at the moment, but they are kind of there just as the muscle at the moment. And I think it's doing them a bit of a disservice when you could be using them to, I don't know, perhaps challenge for those belts again. I guess they've had their shots, really. But yeah, they're having fun. So yeah, I wasn't that surprised because I think they needed that. They needed that back. They needed a bit of momentum, really. And of course, if the other team would have won, you go, well, it wouldn't have led to anything more, I suppose, ultimately. But yeah, it's good to keep Finjuice looking good. I think Edward's there, so yeah, I think that's strong to keep at least one part of that battle. And because that actually, talking about the that is one area where they do seem to be focusing more on the rivalry, specifically with more Finjuice and the Rich Swan thing. That's the two Forbidden Door battles that do actually seem to concentrate on that, and it does seem to be trading backs and forwards. And I think I can't remember who it was in commentary. It was like, this Impact team, they need this, so. Yeah, I think they're doing it with that, I suppose, to go back slightly on what I was saying. But yeah, it seemed a really good match, really exciting. Those three, Omega and Good Brothers, they could do that match in their sleep now, couldn't they? So yeah, it was really good. But Finjuice, obviously, really good. And it's great to see them being kept strong as well, because I think it's really important that, New Japan, as well as Impact, they come across not just looking like losers all the time, because no one wants to see that. We've learned that lesson in the past.
Absolutely. And then we moved on to the main event, which saw Moose becoming the number one contender for Omega's Impact Championship, which he'll defend against Moose against all odds. Again, like the number one contender for the tag match. I'm not going to go through it. It was a fantastic match, epic in every way. Everyone excelled in what they are good at. If you want to watch the match, as I said, I can't do it justice. Go watch the match itself. It's just fantastic. And well done to Moose on winning the match. I mean, obviously, I'll run through who was in there. I mean, it was full of fantastic talent. You had Sami Callihan, returning Chris Bay, Matt Cardona, Trey Miguel, Chris Sabin, and Moose himself. So you know for a fact that that's going to be a fantastic match with the talent that's in that match itself.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, as I said, fantastic pay-per-view from Impact. The quality of work shined through. Very, very good. So just before I hit against all odds, get your predictions or what you think. I'm just going to go through some bits that happened during some highlights from the weekly episodes of Impact. So Rosemary has pinned Deonna Purrazzo, during a 10 knockout tag match, which entitles her to a title match against all odds. Okay. We got Finjuice losing the tag belts, the Impact after Under Siege, which they'd already defended against Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. However, Violent by Design, which is Eric Young, Cody Deaner, Joe Doring, and Rhino, cashed in their Call Your Shot trophy. Now, if you don't know what this trophy is, if you win it, you're entitled to a shot at any title. Okay,
like that.
Okay, You pick what you want.
Yeah,
they cashed it in straight after Joe Doring just laid out both of them. It was a squash match, and they pinned them, so that they are now your tag champions. But they're also, like other companies, are going to use the Freebird rule. So any of them can tag together to defend, which we'll go into in a minute on the Against All Odds preview. So fantastic. This came about, the way it came about was that Finjuice was talking about going back to Japan to take the belts with them. Obviously, this was before the match with Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. So it's a good way of keeping the belts off of them and putting them on a stable. Like Violence by Design is fantastic because Eric Young is fantastic as a promo worker, and all four of them are very good in the ring. We saw the debut of New Japan Pro Wrestling star Natsuyo. I'm going to destroy that. Natsuyo Kijami.
Yeah.
Yep. I apologise for the butchering. His first match was against Cody Deaner, which he beat, which has now set up a match against All Odds against Joe Doring. This again is going to be a hard-hitting battle. Now, whether or not they'll let him win, because the way that they're pushing the stable of Violence by Design is that they're ploughing through everyone. They're taking over. They're running roughshod. So I'm not sure whether or not they'll allow the loss or whether they'll win by cheating, which would be a good way of keeping them both strong, which is always a good way of doing it. That was quite an announcement from Impact, which no one were expecting, especially me. This recent week on Impact, Rosemary stated that she will allow Havoc, who was cheated out of the championship match at said Under Siege, to a match next week. If Havoc wins that, the match against All Odds will become a triple threat match.
Okay.
So again, all three of them will be tackling each other, but again, it just depends on where they go with it. And again, every week, fantastic Impact, putting out very, very good quality shows, very, very good matches. Make sure to tune in. And lastly, or a couple before we finish on the Impact side, we'll look ahead against All Odds. So what we've got so far, or what looks like the card so far, is Morrison will take on Rich Swann, as these two have been battling for the last couple of weeks, and Scott D'Amore has allowed the match to go ahead. So these two are going to face each other since Swann's return. Obviously, these have had a very good rivalry building, which will, again, as I said, go against All Odds. Kojima will face Dorin, as I said, in what will be a very, very hard chop slapping match. Now, what are your thoughts on this one?
It will be hard hitting. It's difficult when you have someone new come in. It's difficult not to see them winning, but as we've seen with like El Fantasma, equally that does happen. So I'm going to go with Kojima winning this one, just because, I think he's there, as to be brought into the showcase, really. It will be hard. I think it will be really good, unless they went to some I don't know, some kind of like time. I'm not sure what Impact have. What do Impact have in terms of time limit? Do they have time limit draws? Or?
It's normally just TV taping.
Right. So, okay. So
they've never really pushed it. They've never really brought it to anyone's attention. It's just gone to a match. I mean, he's now going to be working on New Japan Strong. So I can understand why they're using him in Impact, because it's not that fat. Because obviously New Japan Strong's based in America, so it's very, very good way of getting talent to come across. Maybe we'll see more who have been fighting on New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong come across, and that might be their way of keeping the door open instead of actually bringing people over from Japan itself because of the pandemic. They've got back into lockdown, so it's a good way of bringing a good way of using talent, but not having to worry about bringing them over from an area where they can't send them back.
Yeah, we've seen it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as I've just mentioned, Deonna Purrazzo will face Rosemary and Havoc, depending on the outcome of this coming week's Impact show. If not, it will just be Purrazzo versus Rosemary in a Knockouts Championship match. Again, these two are fantastic in the ring. love both of them, and it promises to be a fantastic match.
Yeah.
Fire and Flavor will defend their championships against Kimberly and Suzanne, who after the failed attempt from Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering happened, these two came out and basically stated, "We are next in line." So we'll see. There's going to be quite a good comedy role from Susan and Kimberly. Maybe we'll see a Sue Young return.
Okay.
Because obviously that's the alter ego of Susan.
Yeah.
So, but again, as I said, the women's division at the moment is very, very good. So no matter who turns up or how the match goes, it promises to be a very, very good, eventful match. We're going to see the tag team titles being defended. So because of the Freebird rule, we're going to get Cody Deaner and Rhino taking on Black Taurus and Crazy Steve of Decay. So again, you've got Rhino, Black Taurus, and Crazy Steve all being mental in the ring, and the added flavour of Deaner will just make it be it could be a comedy match, it could be a hardcore style match, it could just be an all out brawl. But no matter what, it's going to be very, very good. I do love Deaner and Crazy Steve themselves, but adding Rhino and Black Taurus in there, it'll just make it even better. You've got a 6-person number 1 contenders match for the X Division Championship. So the participants are Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Petey Williams, and Rohit Raju. So again, very, very, very good cream of the crop regarding talent. And to be honest, I actually don't know which way this one will go. We've seen Ace Austin win before. Now, will they go down the line and do it again? Will we see someone else? We've had a returning Petey Williams, who has done very, very good on the on Impact recently. It doesn't look like he's missed a step at all. I've got much love for all 6 of these guys, so I really, really don't. I'm not sure. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's really hard to call, isn't it? These multi-man matches sometimes, and that's the point, I guess, isn't it? They're often some of the matches I look forward to the most, actually, because it is that unpredictable. It's really difficult to say now whether anyone goes on and dethrones the current champ. I don't see that happening, but the lead up to it could be a lot of fun. Possibly Chris Bay, I guess. Petey Williams is an absolute legend. He's, the Canadian destroyer. That's his move, and it will always be his move to me. But everyone else seems to have adopted that move. It's become one of the most popular moves in wrestling. So yeah, it would be lovely to see him have a crack. So I'm going to say Petey just because I want him to win. But in my head, I think maybe not. But yeah, so I'm going to pick Petey just for the sake of it. Yeah, just because I want him to win.
Do you know what I agree with? I think having Petey Williams taking on Josh Alexander would be really, really good. Now, we know Josh Alexander is a fantastic technical wrestler. Yeah. We know Petey Williams is.
Yeah.
And again, they're both the X Division style, so it would actually be a really, really good match to see these two. But again, as you said, there's so much talent in there. We can't say who's going to win because there's just so much fantastic wrestlers in there. And then finally, Kenny Omega will defend his title, the Impact Championship, against Moose. Now, before I ask you your opinion, for me, I think if we're going to lose a belt, out of the 3 that he's got so far, this one will be the first one he loses.
Okay.
But I don't think it's against Moose.
Oh, okay.
I think he's going to keep it. Obviously, as we're going to talk a little bit later about it, he's got his championship match against Andrade for the AAA title. Yeah. He's obviously got the AEW championship. For me, if we're going to get it in order, I would say he would lose the AEW one last. Potentially the AAA second and this first. I could be completely wrong. He might be keeping all the belts, but depending on how long this promotional company intertwining crossover goes, they'll want to keep the belt on him until they don't want to do any more business.
Yeah.
In my eyes. Now, I appreciate that they may take the belt off him while they still continue to do the cross-promotional branding. But for me, at the moment, I think keeping it on him would be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Just build everyone else up. Because as we've said before on the previous podcast episode, you don't need the champion to be on there all the time.
No.
So you build to... You have everyone else. You can have everyone else on a weekly show taking center stage and building up the weekly show, and have it, whether it be every month or every couple of months, having the champion be defending it, whether that be Kenny Omega or not, it doesn't matter. That doesn't have to be center stage, because you've got so much fantastic wrestling from Impact anyway, that they can all take centre stage, which they have been doing with the X division, with the women's division, and just with the wrestlers themselves, without having the Impact match, without having the Impact title match be there every week or every pay-per-view. So for me, it'd be quite cool to see Moose take it, but I don't think he will. I think it's going to be someone. Obviously, we know it's going to be somebody else, because it's the only way, unless he gets injured. God forbid it happens. It's the only way Kenny Omega's going to lose the belt. But I'm not sure yet who's going to take it. I don't think it'll be an AEW star, so I don't think it'll be like potentially, for instance, Hangman Page beats him for the Impact Championship.
No.
I don't think it'll be something like that. I think it'll stay with Impact. But again, I think while they're getting new eyes on the product, I think they'll keep it on Kenny Omega, because then that'll bring in the, as we've talked about before, the pay-per-view buys will be generating higher, and it'll be a lot better for them. But I do think it will be a very, very, very good match. What about yourself?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. The order, well, I slightly disagree, I think, with the order of the belts. That's more, right, let's say, whatever reason, you could run pay-per-views at the same time. So if I didn't know that Triple Mania was like August, you know what I mean? And if I didn't know his match was very soon, it would be a different matter. So I think the order is going to be dictated by simply when the pay-per-views are, rather than, but if you took that out of it, I would possibly Triple A first, Impact title loses second, and finally loses at possibly All Out or Full Gear to Hangman Page. So Full Gear will be September time, I think they're pushing that for. So yeah. Andrea, Triple A, makes sense. Moose, really legitimate contender, I think. So I'm going to go back slightly, just based on like what I've seen of Moose recently in his last performance. Some of the highlights were incredible. Again, he just moves like a much smaller man. I think there was a point where he put someone through a table on the outside, and it was just spectacular to watch. So weirdly, I could see if this is like the summer of Omega, and it ends with Hangman Page beating him for the AEW title. You're spot on. I don't think he's going to keep any other belt before that point. So he will lose the AEW last, leading backwards. So it will start to unravel. Possibly, against Moose. And then probably August time, he'll lose the AAA title. So you can see the way it's building up to that, and he gets desperate by the time it gets to Hangman. So for that reason, and again, I said before, I couldn't see who was going to take off him. Possibly he will lose to Moose,
Can you imagine if they timed it right, so you'd have, I can't remember the date of Triple Mania. So for instance, Triple Mania is on the 1st, and then Impact's on the Impact next pay-per-view is on the 8th. And then AEW's the week after. Pay-per-view. Can you imagine Omega losing every belt? On all three, and how unraveled, and that would be a fantastic story to do. It'd be incredible.
That's the classic, I think it was Kurt Angle has 2 belts, loses them both in one night to Benoit and Jericho, triple threat, but he never got pinned, and that's Yes, that's almost how it has to be, because if you're going to lose them, you're going to be desperate and you're going to start panicking and you'll make mistakes. So if you want to make it realistic, they loses all three, make them all happen in a row. You know, I don't know about you, Johnny, but when I've lost a couple of games in FIFA in a row, I probably end up losing more in a row because I'm annoyed and I'm not playing at my best.
You're frustrated,
so, yeah. So, you know, I weirdly, because of the way I think these events are happening, you know, I said AAA I think is August. I could actually see, him losing the Impact title to Moose now, and then keeping the other two for a little while, and then losing all three. So I'm going to controversially say Moose to win it. I really am, because it looks good, and I think that it makes for the storyline is almost playing itself out, isn't it? So, but. So very quickly, one thing AEW is delighted in doing is subverting our expectations to what we thought was going to happen. Hangman Page being a good example. So who knows?
Yeah, and as we've seen on each week, Don Callis is coming on to Impact to be the spokesperson, be the voice of Kenny Omega. Now, something I just wanted to bring up, which is something that I've just thought of. Obviously, it's been reported he's no longer part of Impact.
Yes.
Now, do you think that this will end the promotional partnership with Impact and AEW, or do you think that's just something completely separate?
I think it was probably going to happen anyway. But it's example of like the Good Brothers is a really good example, isn't it? They're almost more in AEW now than they are in Impact. So do I think at the end? I hope not, because they've never really fully explored this. But again, maybe it doesn't have to be a full brand civil war. You know, maybe it just has to be the talent going back and forwards. But for me, I don't think we've really hit full gear on this talent yet, you know, and this talent exchange. So I hope not, but it would make a lot of sense too, wouldn't it? Again, he's got the perfect reason for Kenny not to show his face in the Impact Zone again. Callis isn't there. His connection is severed. So again, that makes sense, doesn't it? The things are kind of being put in place for that to happen.
Well, as you said, it doesn't have to be the end. I mean, the way that they've got it at the moment is the way that the wrestling indie scene is. You know, everyone works for themselves. Everyone can be hired to go work for various companies as long as you're not under a contract, which is obviously what certain people on various companies can't do because they're signed to a contract. But if you're not signed to a contract, you can go work wherever you want, which is why you could see, like, for instance, let's talk about Tommy End. Tommy End 1 week would work in Wrestling Germany for one promotion. The following week he'd be in Scotland. The week after he'd be down in London. And then the week after he'd be wrestling in America. It doesn't matter. But the way that Impact are doing it seems very like that with the whole AEW New Japan. However, personally, I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah.
Downside is that with Impact only having one show, it's hard.
Yeah.
And then you're not getting that. And then you've got AEW that have got so much talent that you can't really push Impact over onto AEW because AEW, if you look at it, is the bigger brand. As much you can sit there and say, well, they've got better wrestlers, or this, that, and the other, or they've been buying this, that. You can't lose that person in the shuffle. You can't have someone coming over into Impact just to do a dark show.
Yeah,
that type of thing. They have to be high. They have to be high, i.e., like Omega coming over to Impact, Good Brothers going over to AEW. Yes, another bit more on AEW, but it builds to like what we talked about on our previous episode, where it's more than the company. They are a brand themselves, so they can go wherever they want and dictate what they want. So, but it's interesting. It's very interesting. Before I pass it over to you, I'd like to do an honourable mention to two guys who constantly tear it up on Impact, and that is Josh Alexander and TJP.
Yes.
Now, as we're recording this, we've just witnessed a fantastic 60-minute Iron Man match on before the Impact. It went to extra time, which meant it actually started the opening of Impact Wrestling.
Which is great.
So you basically saw the last 15 minutes of the match.
Which is great.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to ask you, have you actually seen this match yet?
I have actually, yeah. I really like that idea because of extending over the two shows because it draws viewers into before the impact, but it keeps them watching afterwards as well as if they wouldn't. So like you're not going to dedicate the whole length of that match to impact, are you? It doesn't make sense to. So that's absolutely the smartest thing they could have done, I think. And people would watch the end of it, the bit they're most invested in. I really like it. I really like the idea. Great match. That was the first, wasn't it, for Impact, an Iron Man match, I think, ever. I want to say. I mean, it doesn't sound.
We've had Iron Man matches before where we've got the likes of Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe at New Year Revolution. I think about 2007. But as it is in this current era, if you want to call it, in what's going on in the last 5 to 10 years, I don't think they've gone a 60 minutes. If they've done an Iron Man match, they've done a 30. I'd have to double check that. Obviously, if you want to clarify it by when you're listening to this, pop it in comments, please do so. But off the top of my head, it's been a very long time, as you said, if ever, a 60-minute Iron Man match from Impact. But yeah, again, love these two. I can watch these two all day, no matter what, whether it be singles matches, tag matches. They're just both fantastic technical wrestlers. And TJP has grown so much since leaving WWE. Who would have thought? I'm gonna go behind the curtain here. Suicide. Manic. And then he's come to be who he is, and he's just an incredible wrestler. I mean, you can understand why these two were given that amount of time on the show, especially for a free show as well. Because if you're unaware, before the Impact is a free YouTube channel show. And as of maybe yesterday, a couple of days ago, the entire match is now being available to watch in full, including the bit on Impact, for free on YouTube. So if you haven't watched it, or if you're unaware of them, please go watch it, because it is a fantastic match. And as I said, if not that, just check out any of their work, no matter where they worked beforehand. And I'm going to pass it over to you. Pass over the keys to the door. However, I just wanted to mention one thing, which I'll let you lead into. Okay. So last week there was a picture that was shared, and you yourself shared it on our social media, which was a picture made up from a very, very good guy who does a lot of good artwork. He's done various posters, various mashups, and it was featuring both AEW and Impact Women's Champions. Yes. And the internet went on fire regarding this potential thing, and you shared this. So I'm going to hand over the reins to you. So would you like to explain what had gone on?
I happened to see this on Britt Baker's story. Like, her and Deonna, they're friends in real life, so it was natural that this would get shared. It was a lovely piece of artwork. I mean, I think their GTFX was the @Twitter handle if you want to check them out, at GTFX, I think.
On social media as well, for Twitter, because you'll find it on there, as well as if you just type it in, it'll just be on social media. It's fantastic, yeah.
Absolutely. And I shared this because, like most people, I'd like to see this match, and it would be another champion versus champion match. But I think there's an appetite for that kind of thing. We've seen it recently with Omega and Swan, and this isn't just some fantasy booking at the moment. This could really happen, you see. And that's just why I think it seems particularly exciting with the Forbidden Door open both ways. So, we'll get into this. It's no news to know that Britt Baker is now the new AEW champion. So the thought of her going in the ring with Deonna, so we've already talked about how great she is. obviously there'd be a lot of excitement there. So yeah, you're quite right, Jolly. It got a really great reaction, from not just us sharing it. We saw some of our biggest engagement ever on it, but when they kind of Deonna tweeted it herself later on, and the numbers were just crazy on it, and you could see just how popular the idea of that match was. Britt Baker is super on fire right now, and everyone loves her, don't they? So yeah, it was always going to make sense. But yeah, I'd love to see that match, and I don't think it will happen for Slammiversary, which is a shame because you'd have your fans back for that.
That's what I thought. I thought it'd be quite cool to have that as a Slammiversary women's match, but okay. I agree with you. I don't think it would happen. If it was going to happen, it wouldn't happen then.
No, because they're not. Realistically, you're not really going to see either one of them lose their belt at this point, I don't think either, but I'd love to see him just go at it. It doesn't have to be title versus title, you could just have an exhibition match. But yeah, there's definitely some money in there. People would have seen that and paid attention to it. So yeah, really good for us. We got a lot of engagement. So thanks everyone that liked that and retweeted it. And you could just see the passion in the comments, how much people wanted to get involved in that. There was even talk of AAA involvement being in that as well. So I didn't think I'd seen it on our social media, but most said that door needs to be more open for the women as well. We've seen in AEW the international flavored kind of tournament that they had recently, which worked quite well. I'd like to see it a little more. I would, and what way to headline a kind of inter-promotional match with these two. So yeah, I mean, obviously I don't have to ask you if you'd be excited to see that. I think you would.
Yeah,
but maybe down the line, we can see that, and they know each other, and I think they'd love to tear it up with each other. And like I said, you've got a reason to do that now as well. So yeah, let's hope it becomes more than fantasy booking, and hopefully people will get what they like, and all those likes will be, rewarded.
One before you go into the AEW side, it'd be quite cool because obviously we've seen the NWA Championship being defended. It'd be quite cool to see. If we were going to open that door ever so slightly more, it would be cool to see AEW Impact and potentially NWA.
Yeah,
as part of even if it's just an exhibition match, as you said, it doesn't have to be for a title. It could just be It doesn't have to be for a title to print money. It's going to print money no matter what.
Yeah,
people will be invested, especially with whoever champion is at the time for whatever promotion it is. People are going to be invested in it. So yeah, it'd be cool to see, and fingers crossed we'll see that further down the line.
Yeah, I'd love to see an Evolution style ladies only pay-per-view, but based on dream matches, between like New Japan, AEW, NWA Impact, and what potentially that's a fantastic triple threat, isn't it? I mean, you've got Serena Deeb in there, Britt and Deonna. I'd love to see that, as a main event, or to headline this. I think now's the time to pull the trigger on that. WWE arguably have done really good work pushing the women's talent, but you could argue it's also slightly been forgotten about after it got such a big push. So it would be great to see that happen. But yeah, I think it would be great. So moving on, thanks for that. And again, just to recap, on Impact, they are continuing to knock it out the park. You're quite right, and it deserves those eyes on it. So I'm really glad that one, the fans are going to be coming back onto it, and two, that it continues to get the eyes on it needs. Really, yeah. So yeah, a banner year, I would say, for Impact. Looking back, we're going to say, despite everything, this may be one of the best years they've had, I think, in terms of pay-per-view. So
I agree on that. Yeah,
look back, continue. So a couple of things I want to talk about in terms of AEW. Mostly we're going to be talking about Double or Nothing. We're also going to be looking to the future, to All Out and Full Gear. Excitingly, another new show for AEW planned, and even a change of not network but station, which is going to lead to bigger things. So really, real quick, the lead up to Double or Nothing was not rushed, but I felt like a lot of matches were announced quite late in the month, because I remember thinking, it's going to be the end of May, and they've only got Omega, Pac, and Cassidy, and you had Miro and Archer, but a lot of matches were added in quite late into it. But just very briefly, leading up to the pay-per-view, Jolly, was you hyped for this? Did you think it had like the potential to beat, Revolution, which was the last pay-per-view?
I think for me, disregard the fans.
Yes.
I think it was going to be a good show, but I don't think it was its strongest.
Yes, I agree.
For AEW, and I'm not meaning like for the last 3 months. I mean from the start of the pay-per-views for AEW. Even if you want to include the Ring of Honor side of when they brought it across before AEW became AEW, I don't think it was the strongest. I don't think it was as strong as last year's Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
However, it gave what it needed to. It kept people invested. There wasn't all the matches there were very, very good. All the matches you could get behind. But I do agree there was a bit of a rush. Now, whether or not that was to do with stuff behind the scenes or talent, or they needed to make sure they got certain things in place before they could do things. Like make sure that I could tick the boxes before they started saying, right, now we can do this. Is a different thing. I'm not too sure, but don't get me wrong. It was a very, very. I really enjoyed the event.
Yeah.
As I said, I don't think it was one of its strongest, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a bad show.
I agree. Yeah. I don't think it was the best pay-per-view they've had, but it had so many matches on it, and so much of a stacked card. I think it made up for quality and perhaps in terms of quantity. It had something for everyone. Arguably, I'd say only 3 of the matches had like a long-term build to them, and then some of them did seem quite cobbled together, which I know like happens on pay-per-views. You get these like matches just thrown in kind of last minute. Typically you see it with multi-man stuff, but yeah, I do think some of these things did seem quite cobbled together. However, we may not have thought it was the best thing ever, but the fans, they brought it in their numbers. So 116,000 pay-per-view buys globally, which makes it the second highest ever AEW pay-per-view. Now the number 1 is Revolution, which just happened actually, so surprisingly, yeah, they're in the real peak. So the second best pay-per-view buy they've ever had. So they'll be very pleased with those numbers, I'm sure. Which was a bit of a surprise to me because, yeah, I didn't think it was perhaps the strongest. I thought Evolution from last year might have been up there as one of the number 1 pay-per-views. But I think it just shows there's an upward trend in pay-per-view buys for AEW. And I think leading up to All Out, which is going to be the first time they've taken it away from Daily's Place since the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
All Out's going to be in Chicago, where we started with All In, the very event that started this All Out. All going, sorry. So there's a lot of All Outs, Shake It All About, Soaky Coke. But the fans are going to be there in their droves, and it's going to be amazing. Chicago's always been a wrestling town. Everyone knows that. So I'm really looking forward to that event. But on to the event itself. There was a lot, like I said, last-minute additions, but the matches that were there were of a good quality, I would say. So I was pleased. So bear with me in 1 second. I'm literally just going to pull up my kind of notes to go through the recap. So the buy-in, which I didn't manage to catch actually, funnily enough, was Riho versus Serena Deeb. Now Riho's stock has fallen considerably, the first AEW Women's Champion, and I think now they need to be careful that her stock doesn't drop too far. She lost this title fight, which was for Serena Deeb's NAW World Championship, when Serena locked in a Serenity Lock, great name, forcing her to tap to retain the title. Now Serena Deeb has kept that title for some time now, and it's great. She's a fantastic champion, but again, this is the buy-in show, and I think, well, you can either look at buy-in shows as really important because literally, as the name implies, they force fans to buy in. Like a good kickoff show, it's supposed to entice fans. That's why we've seen a real trend of YouTube and free content, haven't we? WWE have done the same now for several years. But arguably, you could say, does it bring a little less prestige to the NWA Women's Championships? I don't know how you feel about that being defended in a kickoff show with very little hype and pay-per-view build to that. What do you think about that?
I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
You can look at it both ways. You don't want to put I'd say all your stock on your first match.
Yeah.
Because it's not really all your stock, but you want to entice people to buy your pay-per-view. I get that.
Yeah.
But, and I think putting the NWA Women's Championship on there worked because it's not their belt.
Yes, yeah.
If it was Britt Baker versus Shida, or if it was TNT, then you could sit there and say, well, you've given away a free match, like the infamous Hulk Hogan Goldberg one on Monday Night Raw when Goldberg won the belt.
Yes.
You could sit there and say, well, you've given away a free match. However, you could argue and say, well, it's not actually our product. It's not our belt. Now, the strong side of it is that AEW's women's division is very, very good. So you could argue and say, if you want to see fantastic wrestling like this, then tune in to watch more. It's hard to justify what to put on a buying show, because you want to make the match strong enough to entice people to buy it, but you don't want to throw away free matches that you could potentially pay to watch. But then again, you don't want to put on just a standard match and people not be invested. So it is hard. I mean, WWE do it very well because they've got so many belts, for one, and they've got a bigger talent pool. So yes, they do that very well, and they can pick and choose who they want. You could put the Intercontinental title on there. It's not going to tarnish the belt, and it's not going to tarnish the event, because you've got other belts that reflect it. So, like as you said, the US belt and the Intercontinental belt sit side by side. You've got the tag belt side by side. You've got the main belt side by side. So they do it very well, but that's because they've got more to play with. But yeah, it's a tough one. You can put all your eggs in one basket and hope for the best, and people go, well, I've got a free match. Why would I want to watch the pay-per-view? Yeah. Or, as I said, you could sit there and say, well, they've given me this, so because they've given me this free match, or this free hour of matches, then they want me. I should be invested to say thank you. I should pay for the pay-per-view. It's as I said, it's a hard one. I sit on the fence that as long as all wrestling is good wrestling for me. Wrestling. Me and you have openly talked about it on here, offline, on various podcasts. We've openly said that bad wrestling. There isn't bad wrestling. Wrestling is wrestling. It's just It's just wrestling to improve on. So it doesn't matter where it is. I'll always be invested in the show. If I like the product, I'll pay for the show no matter what. Even if they put clown wrestling on for the first hour, it doesn't matter. I'm invested in AEW. I'm invested in Impact, which is why I watch it. I'm not going to pay for the pay-per-view if I don't watch the product. So if I don't watch AEW, I'm not going to watch. I'll watch the buy-in, but I'm not going to pay for the pay-per-view because I've got a free match. You've all these people that are fans of AEW that will pay for it, regardless of what you put on beforehand. So for me, at the moment, I think they are continuing to bring in the money through the fans that they've already got. Same with Impact. The new fans that they're bringing in isn't going to be a big enough buy rate increase to say we need to start putting lots on the line. We need to start upping the ante, as say, and putting that as a free match. We need to start doing sell matches on the pre-show before, so people are invested regardless. You're still going to have people moan. It doesn't matter. That's what wrestling does. We'll sit here and moan about stuff. Doesn't mean we don't like it, but you'll always have people that will moan about, oh well, this. Why did they do this? Or why did the infamous ending to the barbed wire match? And people are still watching it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But this is what social media brings. It gives everyone a voice, and it's okay to be annoyed with a product. Look at WWE. Moment lowest ratings on Raw in 28 years. still going to watch it.
Yeah.
Still going to be invested. So I think no matter what you put on the pre-show, it will always work. If people are invested, they'll watch it. If they're not invested, then it's not going to. The company's not going to lose too much money for them to be worried about.
I think, really good points there. Like, despite the fact it would be for free, arguably might even have less people watching it, because it's seen sometimes as filler. And I think it was Eric Bischoff maybe a couple of weeks ago said that AEW fans were very loyal, and he said it didn't matter what station they turned over to or tuned into, they'd still be there. You make an excellent point, and you're right. I don't think at this point that match, no matter how good it was, would have enticed anyone more to buy pay-per-views. The pay-per-view records were very good. So, I don't know how they can track this, but if there was a way to see if you'd watched the match and then bought the pay-per-view, is anyone actually tracking the science behind this? Maybe not. But it would be really interesting to see that, wouldn't it? To say if anyone then clicked on a link through somewhere to then purchase the pay-per-view, they could prove that point. For now, it gives the chance for talent to be on a card, doesn't it? And what great talent there. And it's a good problem to have if you've got someone like Serena Deeb, who can open up the show for you. So moving on.
Sorry, and also, just one last point. Because of the NWA pay-per-view that's just happened over the weekend, it helps promote them on a different company to say, tune into our show.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's a good point, and she will keep that title for as long as she needs to. But you're right. It's a great way of doing that, isn't it? And promoting another show at the start of the show as well. But I think you are actually spot on. It didn't really matter who was placed in this AEW kickoff show. It's probably their fans are quite loyal. I think WWE fans, you could argue, can be more mainstream sometimes. So it may convince people to buy a pay-per-view. But I think with AEW, I think you already kind of made up your mind, haven't you? Let's be realistic. I don't think anyone's making up their mind the night that they're watching it, that they're going to watch it, especially if you're in this country and you've woken up. I'm not going to wake up at 1 a.m. and go, I'm going to buy it now.
Or like in America where you've still got to pay $60 for the pay-per-view. You've already bought it. You're not going to sit there and go, $60, I've got 2 minutes before I buy it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't think it changes people's minds. So interesting, Okay, so moving on to the main card, and arguably something that is more of a traditional style kickoff match. It was the Machine Brian Cage versus Hangman Adam Page. We've talked about the surprising loss that Hangman took a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite to Brian Cage, and it stopped his momentum somewhat, which we agreed was a good thing to keep kind of him bubbling over while he waits for kind of Kenny Omega. So this was quite good, and two things played into that. So you've got the Hangman momentum, and could he keep that going? Could he recover from a loss? And you've got the ongoing battle internally within Team Taz, where some people are showing respect now to people like Sting, people that have perhaps beaten them. So it was a really great match. Cage was hard hitting. If I was AEW, I'd tell Adam Page to calm down a bit, because some of the spots are really quite scary. He takes some, there was a point about how he takes the flip off the turnbuckle to the outside. He never looks behind him. It's scary. He's really good at what he does. But those two went at each other, at a really quick pace for two big men. And I think my only issue with it was that there were so many kind of hard-hitting, impactful moves that they didn't finish the match. It was a surprise, really, at some point. It was almost like an F5-looking move by Brian Cage, which was really strong. Just some incredible moments. And in the end, it came when, Brian Cage was distracted by Team Taz members. He refused their help. He was arguing, I think, with Hook and Ricky Starks, who sadly, with his not broken neck, with his injured neck, he couldn't compete himself. And then Hangman used that distraction to capitalize, hit him with a buckshot lariat, and take the win. So, it played into, like I said, those two storylines really well. It kept it going. It recovered Hangman's momentum. What did you think of this match?
Really, really good. Like as we talked about in the previous episode, where we talked about how Hangman got beat from being blindsided before the match. It did what it needed to be done. It delivered what exactly you were expected. The momentum that he didn't really lose, but you may have thought, oh God, what's going to happen now? He dismissed that. I'm loving the on-off self-implosion of Team Taz.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we've seen it from Hobbs, we've seen it from Cage.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the other members, and then Taz trying to be the head and say, look, we're all okay, even though we're not, because he don't want to be seen as weak, or that's how it comes across to me. Absolutely love Brian Cage, even when he were in Impact. He's not stopped, even when he won the belt, he got injured, he came back, and then he left. He's still the same, if not better now than he was at Impact, and I think that's one of the good. I think that's one of the best buys for AEW. They've got so much to do with him. Depends on what they want to do with him yet, because he's got star written all over him. He can hold any belt, as we've talked about before with numerous wrestlers. But yeah, I'm liking this almost face turn.
Yes. Yes.
But whether or not it's that conflictingness, that does he leave yet, or does he see what happens, or will they let him leave, or will it end up being where he has to face Starks and Hook in a 2-on-1? Will there be some dissension between them in a tag team, and he kicks Hobbs, or Hobbs kicks him because Cage is helping someone that he thinks is injured on the canvas or on the floor, and Taz is there going, "What you doing?" He's like saying, "Well, you know, he's hurt. We'll kick the living bejesus out of him. I'm not going to do that." And then I don't know. I honestly, because it flicks from week to week. You can see it happening with Cage. You can see the if you want to call it the evilness, the tendency going from his eye, and he's becoming more of a softer character, like as you said, with the whole giving respect for Sting, and the way that it was kept from everyone else was just completely blindsiding them, and they're going, "What are you doing?" I thought that was fantastic. That he's kept it from them. But yeah, the match itself, it went the way I was expecting it to do. It delivered what I was expecting it to do. Unfortunately, yes, there was quite a few spots where even I was sat there going, but I expected it. I mean, that F5 was just, but then again, Hangman Adam Page's finishing move, how he is able to do that and not hurt himself every week or every time he wrestles is just a thing of beauty. But yeah, it did what it needed to do. I expected Hangman to win, to then continue his, as we talked about, his momentum to potentially this long-standing story, which I think is one of the longest-standing stories in quite a long time, where people will use it as a, do you remember this, and this is why it's come to this. Same with Pac Omega type thing. But yeah, it did what it needed to do. I enjoyed it. But very, very strong opening match.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it was great having the fan reaction to Page. He got a really good pop from him. You know, it was, apart from the buy-in, essentially it was the opening match, so he looked really strong, and it was really great to see him get that reaction, because everyone knows how popular he is, but to have the fans back there to give him that reception, it went down very well. And long may it continue with him. I think they know exactly what they're doing with him. You know, it's been a long journey for him, and it will continue. So moving on to some people's match of the night, we had the AEW World Tag Team Championships being defended by the Young Bucks versus the makeshift team, I'm going to say, of Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. Now, the great build up to this was that it was the story of the best tag team, in air quotes there, the Young Bucks, at their very best at the moment. The kind of the zenith, I suppose, of their career, like they're at the pinnacle of their performance at the moment, versus a team that wasn't the tag team, wasn't a tag team. They were just friends, you know, they'd been enemies before. So it made it a great dynamic, because that was the story leading into it. Could these makeshift guys that were hard hitting, hard talkers take on the best tag team in the world? Would they be able to, you know, keep going? Again, like it was very predictable that Moxley and Kingston would have this battle with the Young Bucks. It had been led up to with several wins. And again, AEW has to get caught, unfortunately, in this ranking system they've got. They had to keep winning to get to that point. And sometimes I think you could disregard that. You could just have Moxley, Kingston versus the Young Bucks just because they don't like each other. And I think they've got to be careful with this ranking system, because otherwise it seems very predictable week in, week out, which is why it was such a pleasure to see Cage beat Hangman, because it was a bit of a shock to the rankings. So really, really like good kind of action here. The Young Bucks, probably one of their best matches, and taking on arguably like a team that weren't like tag team specialists themselves, that they've done very well. So I think they definitely brought the best out of Moxley and Kingsley. It ended with Moxley getting hit with 4 consecutive BTE triggers to win. But it was really great. Lots of false finishes in the match. Some great action. Moxley got beat down for a lot of it. He kind of hulked up at some point. It was a great image with blood kind of coming down his face, and leading into it, I think people thought maybe they would dethrone them because of the way they'd put them out. But good storyline leading up to it. I thought very personal stakes. They brought a lot of anger out of each other. And when it came to it, the Young Bucks, they did the business with some assistance, of course. But good match. Let me know your thoughts.
Absolutely, completely agree. The fact that the Young Bucks have now kicked it up a gear.
Yeah.
Nobody thought that they would after the FTR match. Yeah. But the fact that they've kicked it up a gear is they're doing some of their best work for quite a long time. I mean, the enemies, the friends becoming enemies, becoming friends again, to join for a common goal, which is to take out the Young Bucks. These two, I'm loving the stuff that they're doing. I think some of the stuff was a bit when they destroyed the trailer that week. But I liked the promo that they did after the last after the barbed wire match, where they were just sat there and he's going, "Ow, I hurt," and everything like that. You tell them, it just they're very, very good together.
Yeah, they are.
And like what we were on about before with Omega, they're not. I don't think they're a team that would win the belts, but they would push it over so much that you would think, could they?
Yeah, exactly.
Could they actually do this?
Yeah.
But I don't think they will. I think it's going to. Or ultimately, we know. Ultimately, someone else is going to take it off them. But I don't think that the team of Moxley and Kingston would. But they would give them a good match, a good enough match to show that both teams are very good and excel in what they do. Moxley and Kingston are very good as singles wrestlers. As we saw, they're very, very good at tag team wrestling. They work well because they're friends. They know how their strengths and weaknesses. And I think it showed really well. But again, as I said, as we see on each week, the obnoxiousness, the venom that's in the Young Bucks at the moment is just fantastic. And I know a lot of people that are complaining online and saying, "Oh, well, they don't like this." And that. Just accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
Just accept it for what it is. It's enjoyable, and it's going to make them losing them belts even more enjoyable. Again, like with Omega, as soon as they lose them belts to whoever, even if it's Varsity Blondes, even if it's Butcher and Blade, it doesn't matter. Everyone's gonna be, ha, you've lost the belt, and it's just gonna make them even more heelish because they're gonna be so obnoxious then that they haven't got the belt. But as I said, and as you said, I completely agree with you 100%. Fantastic match. Loads of near falls. They weren't going to win the belts, but they put enough in it that you think maybe, especially with them 2 3/4 counts, stuff like that. And you got to give it to referees as well for being able to put it in there to make it legitimately look like they've kicked out at the right time. So very, very good. Right win though.
Yeah, absolutely. It was brilliant. And you're right. What they do so well is that kind of leaping in on the 2 count, to just reach their arm over. I've seen Matt and Nick that do that so well off camera. They're getting ready for it. They do that probably better than anyone else. This is for me, yeah, vintage Young Bucks. They are at their absolute best right now. I'm having a great time watching them. I enjoy reading their new bios, which get updated sometimes twice daily on Twitter. And it's so funny and so heelish. And I said myself, on social media, I've never understood really the hatred towards them. Like, look what they've done, look what they've achieved, and I can understand there's a certain sort of fan that doesn't enjoy what they do, but no one can deny the heel work that they're doing. They're much better as heels. They are so funny, and they are genuinely nice guys in real life, I think. So it's just hilarious to watch them because they're not the biggest guys, so all they can do is be arrogant, and they did it exactly right in their match. They did have to cheat to win in the end. They had to slip away. They stole that victory, and long may it continue. Each week I look forward to them coming out, and it's just ridiculous fun they're having at the moment. So yeah, they're doing their best work. So this was another example of that. And you're spot on. No one really believed they were going to win, but what good work to make us think it on the night. Like you knew that they weren't going to, and yet that is the best form of wrestling, when you can just let go of what you think is going to happen just for a second and get pulled into it. So moving on to something very different. It was the Battle Royale, now the Casino Battle Royale. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the rules. Suffice to say that each of the competitors are split into suits. So, aces, hearts, spades, and clubs, and then they come out at timed intervals. So, again, I'm not going to dwell too much on the structure of it. This is not the first time they've done a Casino Battle Royale, but this was one of the better ones, actually, I think. And the winner was Jungle Boy, and this has been a long time coming for him. They know with certain talent not to pull the trigger on them too early, like MJF, yet to actually win a title. Jungle Boy, Sammy Guerrero, they know what they're doing with these guys. So Darby was the first one to break out of that group and win the TNT title. That was right, I think. And maybe now we'll start to see it. When I was arguably Britt Baker was the second one of this group that Cody calls like the sophomore group. It was their second proper year in AEW. So maybe we'll see Jungle Boy now do something better. But yeah, really good result for him. The fans were already, loving him. His entrance music has only helped that more and more. Last time he came very close to winning in a very similar situation, actually, and he'd barely lost out then. But having him beat the final competitor in the ring, who was Christian Cage, it was a great ending, a moment of respect between the veteran and the relative newcomer there. And I look forward to seeing what they do with Jungle Boy next. But what I did want to talk to you about was the debut of one Lio Rush. There's always... Yes, always surprise entrance in these, and this was that surprise entrance. So tell me what you think about the Battle Royale, but more importantly, what do you think about Lio Rush's debut?
Like as you said, it's hard for a company to make something new because WWE own everything else, which is why you can't make it too similar because people you'll get sued, and then people say, well, you're just copying something else, and you can't make anything so outlandish that people are not invested. It's hard to bring some, unless you call it a battle royale, you can't do anything different. And so, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's different, and a lot of people like it, but they're doing the best of what they can with what is available for them. I quite like it. I like the fact that, instead of it being like every one person every so long, it's a group of people. Just slightly, everyone's thinking that Christian Cage would win to see Jungle Boy, and as you said, if I'm right in thinking, you're implying towards the match he had with Chris Jericho, was immense, and it just showed you that he not only can Chris Jericho elevate someone, that Jungle Boy can work with someone like that, and it works so well that you would think Jungle Boy would been doing it longer than he actually is. And I think that's very, very good. Lio Rush, now what I've been told is that his appearance was because of the New Japan Pro Wrestling deal. I would have liked to have seen him a bit longer as somebody who was in there for like maybe a couple of minutes. It's a shame I would have liked to have seen him a bit longer, but it was quite cool to see someone different. Again, as I said, if he'd have been down to the last three, it might have been a bit it might have been worked a little bit better. But the fact that he was in and then just got eliminated pretty much straight away was a shame. But it was cool to see him.
Yeah.
It was cool to see him on major TV. Obviously, he's been working for MLW, and then he's doing stuff with New Japan. But yeah, it was a shame what they got out of him or how they used him. It would have been, for me, it would have been nice to see him being there longer, work a little bit better, and get down to maybe the final three, maybe the final two.
Yeah.
And then have Jungle Boy eliminate him. But I'm happy with the result. I don't think anyone actually were expecting anyone other than Christian Cage to win. Just because of how they've pushed it. If you look at the lineup of everyone that was in there was not very many people that you would say who you would expect, other than maybe the Joker. And then obviously Joker came out. But yeah, I enjoyed the match. As you said, it's hard and difficult to do something new that sticks out without upsetting people or being different enough not to rub people up the wrong way. But yeah, Jungle Boy, very, very good shout. Very happy with that. But again, as I said, Leo Rush's debut could have been handled a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, isn't it, with battle royales? You're right. You're going to either win or you're going to get tossed out, aren't you? Really, and either way, either one doesn't necessarily always seem appropriate for someone so new. So yeah, it's a difficult one to bring him in on. You know, we've seen it before when you had Ethan Page debut at the Face of the Revolution ladder match. That was a strong debut, you know, and it didn't matter because you didn't have that moment of him looking weak, getting tossed out. So you're right, it's quite difficult to balance that. Now, very briefly, that wasn't the only debut of the night. Now, again, this is something that's caused a bit of upset, going, oh, it's another ex-WWE guy. But everyone needs to look at the context of this. So, you know, this happened later in the night, but I'm going to talk about now. The world's strongest man, Mark Henry, makes his debut on AEW. Very briefly coming out, being introduced by Tony Schiavone. Now, he's not there to compete. You know, he's there to add his experience and his talent to the roster. And he's got a lot of charisma as well. Much like Paul White, when that was first announced, I think everyone's immediate reaction was like, oh, they're just going to, it's another ex-WWE guy that they're going to push in the ring. But we've seen that's not the case. I don't think there's any problem with bringing in these guys and to use them to their full capacity. You know, yes, I don't want to see Mark Henry necessarily wrestle, you know, Kenny Omega. I don't want to see Paul White for that. They brought him in. So it was not a surprise to see someone like that come in, but it was a welcome addition, I think. So tell me very quickly about Mark Henry's addition.
Obviously, we found out that he's going to be taking a coaching role. It's quite cool that they're going to use him on Rampage, but I think it's mixed bag, like with a Paul White, isn't it? You know, it's really good to have these faces on your product, but do you need them? How are you going to use them? I'm quite like the fact that Paul White and Mark Henry have both said that they'd be up for coaching and training and helping, just being there just for a shoulder to, if you want to talk to me about anything. That's really, really cool. It's part of me is very much, you've got a name like that, but you're only going to use them for this.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing of Tony Atlas, when we had Tony Atlas being with Mark Henry.
Yeah.
You know, I were expecting maybe like a Sting type of role, not actually wrestling, but maybe just like a manager or even just someone backstage. But again, that's all we know about, is that he's going to be doing this. We don't know what else he's going to be doing, but it's quite cool. We don't know if, I'm just unsure about bringing him in. I mean, he's got value. He's got a name. He's got people can use him. That's not a problem. But it's just I'm unsure putting him behind the desk is the right thing. I mean, it might make people want to watch Rampage because of the name, but I don't know if necessarily that is the right place for him to be.
I think you're probably right. The way they bring these talent in, they announce them as if they're going to be, I suppose, wrestling, and they're going to be like front and center. But yeah, perhaps they don't need to be making these grand announcements. Perhaps say Mark Henry's joined the stuff. We all know Billy Gunn is part-time wrestling, but he's been there for a long time. Same with Jerry Lynn. Now, these guys didn't get a particularly grand introduction to AEW, and they didn't need it, really, did they? It maybe if they need more of a focus on what they would be doing, people wouldn't be so up in arms about it. I do think it's a good addition to it, because anyone with that level of experience is, and he's been in the game. We're just talking way back to the Attitude Era and before that, almost like so.
Yeah, 97.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. A lot of experience between him and Paul White. You've got years of experience there, so I think it's a good addition to it. But I know what you mean. It's using these people in the right way, and I can see how it looks from an outsider point of view, but I think once they understand what they could use them for, it's a different matter. But how they put that across is the challenge I think AEW has. So I agree with that. So that did happen later in the pay-per-view. But moving back to the sequence in the actual card, the most controversial match on the pay-per-view, the American Dream, one night only, Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Go-Go with QT Marshall of the Factory. So there's been a lot of controversy, more probably so from the fans in this country, about how Cody was going about building this matchup. It was more anti-Britain in a lot of cases than it was kind of anti-Anthony Go-Go. Now, we've had our own thoughts about what they're doing with the Factory feud, and this week on Dynamite, we saw a bit of a change, actually, where the momentum was swung back the other way. But we said before, Jolly, about how they'd perhaps gone too soon on this, and Cody had already beaten QT, the leader, for then taking on his minions, in a Go-Go, for one example. So Cody wins the match, and a lot of people again will get ready with the golden shovel tag. They'll come out against Cody again to say, like, should you have not put over a Go-Go here? Only to see him get knocked out by him this week and give QT Marshall the win. So you could have argued that something like that could have happened on the pay-per-view and it would have been better served. So, in general, as a side note, tell me how you feel about Cody Rhodes. Now, I like the guy personally. I think he's done so much for the company. But how do you feel about, taking aside everything else, his in-character, his storyline character in AEW right now?
I'm conflicted.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He's a fantastic wrestler. He knows the product. He knows what he's doing.
Yes.
But I can't gauge him from week to week. As you said, we talked about it before. The right person to put over would be Antonio Ogogo, because of potentially him going away to be a father. It's certain people that he's wrestled and he's beaten. You would think that if it was Jericho, it'd be the other way.
Yeah.
Like Cody's faced a lot of people, and he's won, but he doesn't need it. He doesn't need the win.
No.
He's someone that doesn't need it. I don't think it's the golden shovel treatment. I don't think it's that, but I think if they've got a story laid out that they're planning, that's fair enough. But the way it looks on TV looks very different from how they're thinking it looks. Or they're going, the long, we're going for the long haul of it, and this is the outcome where he gets beaten. That's fine, but we're not seeing you're on it. You're on every week telling us how you're better than everyone else, how you're going to overcome the odds, and how you're going to do this, that, and the other, and how you're beating other people. But you're pushing it every week. We're getting tired of it now. And yes, it might only be 6 weeks, but because you've been doing it every week, we've had enough, and we want you to lose. Like, as I said, it's a hard one to explain. It's just, I don't think it's as bad as some people have done in the past for various companies. Whether you look in the 80s, the 90s, WCW, WWF, WWE, Impact, AEW now. I don't think it's as bad as that, but I think because of who he is, where he sits on the board, and is very mirroring somebody else that we all know.
Yes.
And we don't want it to be that. We're fighting that to say, no, it's not that. But it's getting more like that. And we don't want to admit it because we hoped that it wouldn't. I think the wrong person won, as I said. Bottom line, I think the wrong person. Now, regardless of what Dynamite was, it doesn't matter. But I think the wrong person won for me. And that isn't because we're Brits. That's just storyline booking.
Yeah.
You're putting over someone like that, a go to be so hard that he gets beat by Cody.
Yeah, and I think like you said, he'd beaten QT. They needed a win back, didn't they? And that happened this week, but it happened the wrong way around. Really, this should have been the face Cody getting a measure of revenge this week, shouldn't it? He could have, done the opposite. And yeah, they could have let a go win the pay-per-view. And it doesn't matter how nefarious means he would have won it. He should have won that match. I think had it not perhaps been Memorial Day in America, they had a tribute to the troops with Sean Dean there, the captain. I guess for us fans, we're seeing it differently in this country, aren't we? Yeah. In America, it could have been read completely differently. But even American fans would understand the importance of getting young talent over. And having him lose clean to Cody, it achieved nothing, especially to only see a go-go cost him a win against QT this week. And think, yeah, but you've had that match now. What are you building to? We also saw Dustin Rhodes have they're having a bit of a dual rivalry. Maybe to the Rhodes reuniting for some tag match, maybe with another person like Sean Dean coming in or Big Shotty Lee to team up against all the factory. But we've already said how the main draw should ultimately QT versus Cody. And they've done that. So, yeah, everything about this feud, after promising so much at the start, seems to be going wrong. And you kind of need Cody in the best way to go away now, don't you? And let him come back to a triumphant crowd. And again, if you take away what he's done for the company and the hero he's become in AEW fans' eyes, take that away, and you would look at this very differently, wouldn't you? You just think, this is all wrong. All right, well, I don't want to dwell too much on that. But, yeah, unfortunately, it was one of the... It wasn't a bad match by any means, but the wrong finish did leave a sour taste. And even Cody might have known that, and he's smarter than that. So moving on, a match that we had kind of said perhaps didn't need to happen yet, but surprisingly did. Miro, the best man and current TNT champion, versus the Murderhawk monster, Lance Archer, easy for me to say. So Miro wins this match when he locked in game over, the camel clutch-like move on Lance Archer, but in classic kind of good booking, he didn't tap, he passed out, which keeps him looking strong as well. Now, from what I can tell, we've promised a bit of a change now for Lance Archer. He seems to have cut his hair off, that long braided, whatever you want to call that. And maybe this is due because he's lost, as we've said, a lot of big matches now. He's had a lot of opportunities at big, titles almost. And maybe we need something different now for Lance Archer. We kind of knew he wasn't going to lose to Miro in this match. But for what it was a very hard-hitting match. There was some incredible spots in it. Two big men really going at it. It didn't disappoint. But again, perhaps it was too soon to see these two go at it and to have Archer lose. So let me know what you think about this match.
Completely agree. Lance Archer is someone that needs that momentum, and he's been on a losing streak for quite a while now. What I would do with him now is do that whole the whole Adam and Page thing.
Yeah,
build him back up. Don't get him and give him a title match. Just let him fight. Build them wins up, and then he eventually potentially faces Miro down the line, someone else, or even Kenny Omega. It doesn't matter, but he needs to have some momentum now because.
Yeah,
especially with what he's tweeted out. He's tweeted out something like, rebrand, reborn, or something like that, or time for a change type thing, which I think is good. He could use that as a storyline, as that is the why he needs to change. That is why whatever he was doing in the past isn't working. He needs to update himself. He needs to have a new vision, a new look on life, or however he wants to, and hopefully that will then lead to wins down the line. But yeah, I completely agree. It's Miro wasn't going to lose this match, not with what they've built with him. But putting, as we've said before, putting him with Lance Archer so early, unless there's a reason behind him to lose, to build him to be a different Murder Hawk, is something that we don't know. But you couldn't have Miro facing just someone less of a threat. But yeah, it was one that we talked about that was done really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But you were always going to get a good match out of them both. It's just a shame that somebody that we speak very highly of had to take the win. Had to take the loss.
Yeah. He'd already had a change of direction, hadn't he, recently, with that pep talk from Sting, and he'd become a face, hadn't he, in the last couple of months, chasing off people like Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. So he'd already had that change. And how long can he keep hold of Jake Roberts if he's going to be a face? I don't know. So maybe he ditches Jake, say, I'm sorry, this isn't working. They leave amicably, perhaps. But yeah, does he come back as a face or a heel? It's difficult to say. But yeah, it's I don't think they've quite booked him right. Out of all the big men, they've not given him that time. Like, he's been winning matches and he wins opportunities, but he's now lost another big match. And fans aren't stupid, you know, their memories go back some way, and they will remember that he keeps losing these big opportunities, really. So yeah, I think it was a good match, but it was wrong to have it so soon, you know. And I would have really liked to build up to that match, and you could have built them both up, like you were saying last time on the show. You were saying, let's have like Miro outperform and say, I can do this, you know, I can beat up 3 guys. And I was like, well, I'm going to take on 4 of these local jobbers and beat those guys, you know. And they could have competed as these 2 big hosses, you know, proving themselves until they finally met, perhaps at All Out. So yeah, I really think they rushed that. And it wasn't a bad match, don't get me wrong, but we both know that it didn't feel right, you know, to have him lose. And yes, he passed out, but Miro still came across looking incredibly strong, which is great for Miro, and he absolutely is doing his best work. But yeah, I do think they could have built up to this a little more. So moving on to something they did build up really well, Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida. Shida was the current champ at the time, and we all knew that this was going to be one of the highlights of the night, and it didn't disappoint. I was surprised at how technical the kind of match was, actually, and how clean it was for the most part. But what we ended up having was a lot of great false finishes. You had Reba accidentally hitting Britt with the crutch, didn't lead to the pinfall. You also had a curb stomp on the title. Shida was stomped by Baker on the title. That didn't lead to it. And what you end up having was a fantastic finishing sequence where Shida, out of frustration, had kind of sat up after another near fall. And Britt very quickly turned her over and maneuvered her into the lockjaw, which she'd been trying to get the entire match, and finally locked it in to tap out and to see a new champion in Dr. Britt Baker. So it was a really well-worked match with that storyline of her trying to hook in the lockjaw the entire way. Everyone poured out their best shots, you know, and yeah, technically it was really sound match, and they didn't have to go too crazy on the hijinks. Just some really good points from it. You had a really good touch from Reba where she'd gone to swoop the leg when Shida was running against the ropes, as they tend to do, and she'd actually missed that. And the fact that they included her doing it but missing it was a brilliant little touch, because whenever they do that, they always pull their heel down. They always like make that moment work. So for me, that was a lovely touch. But the end result is inevitable crowning of a new AEW champion and the face of the women's division, Dr. Baker. So tell me what you think about the match, and let me know what you think about you know, Britt's kind of final and biggest moment today, basically.
As we said, we knew it was going to happen. The crowd knew it was going to happen. They almost changed. They almost did the whole Hulk Hogan Rock WrestleMania scene where, you know, we change her into a face just by the crowd.
Just by that.
The crowd. We said it before. The crowd were waiting for this, and we were right. Everyone was right. But yeah, the match was sound. It was one of the best wrestling matches from the women's division to date. The right person won, as we said. can't take anything away from Shida. I think she's been stifled a little bit with the whole pandemic. So not being able to do as much as they wanted to. I think if there was no pandemic, I think Britt Baker would have won it earlier.
Yes, yeah.
Because obviously the fans. But I think it's the right choice to do, and let both of them do something now different. You can have Britt Baker playing however she wants, being the champion, and Shida either taking some time away or having a rivalry, doing something else. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought the right, as we've said before, I think the right person won, and you could see it in her face, you could see it in everyone's face, Tony Schiavone's face, and the fans that it's what we were waiting on. If anything from that night, it was to see the crowning of a new women's champion, even over Omega, Pac, and Orange Cassidy. Yeah, absolutely. So hoping for continuing to see more good things from Britt Baker.
Yeah, arguably this could have been the main event. And it was certainly a co-main event. Despite where it was placed, you could have put this on last and still been the best match of the night, in my opinion. I understand why the Stadium Stampede has to take like that final place because of its grand nature. But yeah, I would have been just as happy watching this as the final match. Really, if anything, like this is the match I wanted to see the most. And this is for me, it was the buy-in match, the one that had the most, intrigue. Even if you knew it was going to win, you wanted to see it happen. You knew it was going to be a good match. Fantastic work this week with Dr. Britt Baker having her celebration. McDonald's had gifted her several hundred free Big Macs, and she did a brilliant spot where the Inner Circle had given out T-shirts to everyone in the night, and they were under the fans' chairs, all Inner Circle Stadium Stampede winner shirts, and they repeated that spot with Britt. It said, "Look under your seats, there's burgers for everyone," but the vouchers just weren't there, and it was brilliant. Cut to the crowd looking disappointed, looking annoyed. Then she reveals that they were just right there next to her where they should be, because she'd done it by herself. She'd earned this title, and no one else had helped her. And that's with Reba right next to her, which was brilliant, and Tony Schiavone brought her late in. So she did exactly what she needed to do, because you've got to... She must have been overjoyed to win that and see their reaction. So you've got to keep your heel head on, haven't you? You've got to immediately go back to being an absolute terrible person the next night or Friday night. So she did that really well, and it was a lovely spot. They had Nyla Rose be upset and kind of indignant throughout that whole segment. Lots of talent were in the ring there to help celebrate, but then she ended up flipping like the tray of burgers up, walking away upset along with her manager Vicky Guerrero. So possibly Nyla Rose, Baker again, but I don't know if anyone wants to see Nyla Rose competing straight away for the belt, but maybe it was just a fun little spot there. But who knows? This is definitely her era. She was the face, arguably, and yeah, let's see what happens next with that. But yeah, long may it continue, and shout out to Rebel Reba for just being so much fun all the time. She adds so much, and a really interesting quirk. She lost the crutch the moment that Britt won the title. She didn't need that crutch anymore, so this week she didn't come out with it, which is such a good touch. That she immediately was healed after her friend won the title. So much respect to her for that. So yeah. Now they paced the pay-per-view quite well, because now they went into a kind of predictable but fun tag team match between Darby Allin and the Icon Sting in his first actual pay-per-view match after the cinematic match he'd had at Revolution against Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. So these guys have been at each other's throats for several weeks now. It all started with Scorpio Sky taking his frustration out on Darby Allin after Revolution, when he lost the TNT title opportunity, and Ethan Page joining forces with Scorpio to basically cause a bit of havoc, keep their eyes on the TNT prize, and basically upset the kind of good time story that is Sting and Darby Allin. So it was a good match. Again, very predictable. Sting was never going to do anything but take the pinfall in this match, but it had a really great build up to it. We remember Darby being thrown down the stairs of Dave's place. We had some great moments with the multiple Stings and the unmasking to reveal one of them actually was Sting, which admittedly was done before by Sting in WCW. But yeah, some great moments leading up to it, and the perfect opponents in the very athletic and kind of, I want to say, bouncy Scorpio Sky. Like, he can take hits really well. You know, he sells really well, and Ethan Page as well. So, you know, it ended with a cutter reversed into the Scorpion Death Drop. It actually looked really good when they did that. So it was a nice finish. But again, a bit of a kind of fun aside match. Like, no one ever knew that. You know, no one ever thought this thing wasn't going to win that. Let me know what you think about this one, Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely. It's was it somewhat daft, like it's his first match since
Yeah.
Clash at Champions.
Yeah, which is against what, Seth Rollins, wasn't it? When he came out,
That's September, like about 6-7 years it was.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. But to see him actually be in the ring, I think they did. I think they structured it very well.
Yeah.
To make sure they protected Sting enough so that they didn't hurt him, but then also made sure that it wasn't just a gimmick that he's in the corner and Darby Allin's doing all the work. And I can see Sting being very influential in that match as regards this is how I want it to work. I'm loving what Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page are doing, but as you said, the storytelling on them, Sting and Darby Allin itself is very good. The way that they've built Scorpio Sky since losing the TNT Championship opportunity against Darby Allin, and then obviously Ethan Page coming in just to amplify that, because obviously we all know about their rivalries, both rivalries from years ago, and that 6 spot that they did with throwing him down the stairs, and him only coming out a little bruised. He's just made out of jello.
Yeah. It's an amazing moment where I think it's called the Ego's Edge, where it's like a razor's edge like move, where he tossed Darby into the fans at ringside. It was just brutal, you know, and that shines the spotlight on 2 things. One, Ethan's surprising strength. He's got a real amount of power and strength to do that move. Just shows again, like you said, he's made of rubber. It's amazing, you know.
But as we said last on the last episode, he needs to be careful because there's going to be a point where he wakes up and he can't walk.
Yeah,
it's going to catch up to him.
Yeah,
but fair play, carry on doing what you're doing. Love the match again, as you said. It was just it did what it needed to be done. Sorry, it did what was expected from them, from all 4 of them. Sorry, and yeah, it just solidified them 2 as a team, and then as in Allin and Sting, and it made it boosted the ego. Sorry, it boosted Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page's credibility as a threat and as wrestlers. Now, obviously, if you are aware of Ethan Page, you'll know of him in Impact and on the indie scene. Same with Darby Allin. But yeah, it did what it needed to be done, and I can't put anything down on it at all. I think the right people won. It, as I said, it did what it needed said on the tin. So.
Yeah, it's spot on. You know, it was always going to be their result. It was still a good match. The only intrigue was to see how Sting would perform, I think, and he did well. And I think he actually has done quite well. You know, whether or not we'll see this relationship continue beyond this now, I don't know. I don't know where that goes from there. You know, I don't see any real reason for Sting to turn on Darby or likewise, you know, the other way around. So, you know, maybe they'll just kind of naturally devolve off into other things. But what do you do? Sting moving forward, I don't know. You know, I'd like to see him go up against Jericho. Actually, you know, I think you need him to be in some kind of big matches like that. I think he's going to be used in non-title matches. But yeah, I'd actually quite like to see Sting Jericho or Sting with, you know,
I could potentially, after we were talking about the Impact with the title, I could potentially see, after Omega losing the belts, Omega going on this. I don't know how to. I wouldn't know how to write it, but he'd basically go after all the legends. So your Paul White match, your Mark Henry match, your Sting match.
Yeah.
People that he thinks potentially that they're the reason why there's something wrong in the business, or they've caused it in some way I don't know. I just thought a bit off the top of my head, but it'd be quite interesting to see him facing Sting. Two completely different, contrasting wrestlers. But we know Omega can wrestle different styles, so he could work. It could work really, really well with Sting, Paul White, and Mark Henry going up against the guys. But I could see that be a devolving. In him basically having a mind melt and just going after people like that.
Yeah, an easy way to get heat on someone is to beat up a legend, isn't it? We've seen it, so yeah, I think that's actually quite good. And I am just racking my brain to remember the last time Omega went up against a big man. And I can't think of, even back to New Japan, I'm trying to think of the last time he fought. Because, I mean, who is he fought? Moxley quite a few times, and I don't think he's actually...
He's not... In AEW, he hasn't. He's not faced the likes of Miro, the Lance Archer, and that. He's faced everyone that's pretty much been on the same par. And as you said, if you look at Japan, even if with your 60-minute matches with like, I generally don't know. I generally can't think of anyone that you would class as a legend. Because they're all still working a full-time shift.
Yeah, I mean, he fought Jericho, didn't he? And that was that kind of match. But a bigger man, I want to see his big man style, and that leads to possibly Paul White. And that those two could put on a good match. Omega's talent combined with Paul White's experience, it could be something interesting. But something about Sting and Omega really intrigues me, actually. It's a dream match that you never would have thought of, possibly, because you could never see those two worlds combining. But I actually really quite like the idea of that.
Maybe something like that. Maybe something like, someone mentioning something in passing or in a promo or walking past and going, oh, well, now you've lost your belts, are you going to take a step back and do a part-time role or something like that? Like these legends that we have, and then it builds from that, and him going, I'm not a legend, and then he sees Sting or he sees Paul White, and then it just builds from that. Something from someone commenting something, and it builds. Like how he's very good at having his chaos in his mind. Something like that, and we could have promos. We could have backstage, like almost. I know it sounds daft. We could have in the mind of Omega what he's thinking and everything like that, and it's and almost like a cinematic thing. Not match, but just a promo of what's going on. What's he thinking, and then it jumps in and he's there and it's just chaos because it's just got pictures of Sting and Paul White and Mark Henry and then him echoing in the promo, just going, I'm not legend, I'm not like these, I'm better than these, and then he goes out and proves it.
Yeah, these part-timers haven't earned that status. I've been here proving that I'm the best for the last couple of years. How dare
I'm a legend, but not like that.
Legend here. Yeah, how dare they say they're legends and just walks into my house that I built, Kenny Omega, it builds itself. So, I'm just really excited in a way I love him being the champion, to almost see him lose that and see what he could do with a non-title feud, I said, and use that character that he's got more. So, I think that's a good shout, and we'll see with that one. I'd like to put some money on that. I think we might be onto something with him taking on something. So, speaking of the man himself, a really great segue into the co-main event, which was Kenny Omega, current AEW champion, and various other champions, versus Pac and Orange Cassidy. So, the lead up to this again was, not bad at all. Like Cassidy had earned his way into this. Kenny was dismissive of him and his kind of general character, and he didn't really consider him a threat. Even trying to defer his title shot. Don Callis, trying to get Orange just to leave it alone for now. However, Pac was considered more credible. He had a history with Omega. He had beaten him. In fact, I'm pretty sure. I want to say the last person to beat him on a pay-per-view was Pac at All Out a couple of years back now. So he really had that history there, that unfinished business. So it was great to see those two go at it again. Again, triple threats give you every opportunity to not necessarily have to come across as a fighting champion, because you can sneak your way to win it. We kind of knew that might happen. But how they did it in the end of finish was Kenny kind of almost comically had multiple belts to do multiple belt shots with. So he was tossed belts in, took out Pac, and it was like, well, give me the second belt, and took him out, and in the end, Super Elite kind of hijinks allowed him to take that. We also got the little interesting side story of Frankie Kazarian being known as the Elite Hunter now and seeking vengeance for, SCU being defeated and asked to kind of split, because of that. So that's an interesting side story that continues to go on. But anyway, the match itself was really good. Again, this was a pay-per-view full of kind of unsurprising victors, really, wasn't it? But quite good matches, and this was another one. There was absolutely fine action, some really good spots in there, and some really good kind of near fall moments where you might have thought perhaps Orange Cassidy could do it, but in the end, I think, we all knew that Omega really wasn't going to lose that. But it was a good main event, and it was nice to see it work a triple threat, not just straight up, action. I'm thinking back, and I want to say this was the first triple threat title match they've had in AEW. Now, I could be wrong, but again, it's nice to see them do something different there. And I'm a fan of that kind of match purely because the opportunities it presents you. Plus, you don't book yourself into a corner. You can very easily have the heel champ win or the face champ lose. And either way, they can get cheated out of it or cheat to win it. So it works both ways, doesn't it? So Omega walks away, to fight another day. And lead to the eventual Hangman Page battle. What did you think of this match, and perhaps of the predictable but still fun, nature of it?
As you said, we knew we were going to win, but again, it did that whole thing of maybe not. But it's Omega, so the way that they're building him, the way that they're building the character, the way that they're building the brand, and the faction itself. You knew what the outcome was going to be. The match itself was very, very good. Yeah, you're right. It's very good when you have a triple threat or a four-way, because everyone has time to shine, but then everyone has time to have a bit of a break. They're not constantly having to fight, which sometimes can make them tired. It shows when they need a break and that. But I like the diversity of having different people fight and having a bit of a change, because everyone brings something different, especially when you have all three fighting at the same time as well.
Yeah.
Pac and Orange Cassidy did what they needed to do, and I think the build for it was very, very good. I think how Omega's character up to the build regarding it has been very, very good, and he's, as we've said before, he's doing what he needs to do to build his name, if you want to call it, not the championship, but build him as being this ultimate baddie type thing. Same with the Young Bucks. But I enjoyed it. Some really, really cool spots, some really good near falls again, as we've talked about before earlier on. It delivered what it needed to do. Right person won. And it just builds to that inevitable Hangman Page match.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It carries on. Omega, again, like the Young Bucks, having one of his best years, of his careers, I think. And it's great to see him take on a diverse range of opponents. And he's so busy at the moment. It feels like every other week he's taking on someone because of the nature of the Impact pay-per-views and AEW pay-per-views running kind of concurrently. So he's like the hardest working man in wrestling, isn't he, at the moment? So it's great to see that. And like, if you think about who he's already faced and who he's yet to face, he really is taking on kind of not all comers, but like it feels like that. So I'm enjoying his work, and I can't even imagine what it must be like for him all the time to be having these massive pay-per-view matches. Almost every month he's done one when you look back on it now. So he's really carrying the weight of this company. And as he said, memorably, when he was leading up to Winter Is Coming, he said, I never wasn't the cleaner, and it never wasn't my place to be like the face of this company. I'm just ready to reassume that role now. And he has, he's kind of led the company, hasn't he, this year? And he's a great, if it was a sports team, he's the captain, isn't he, almost, of AEW, and he's doing a good job of that at the moment. So moving on to the final match, Stadium Stampede 2. Now, very quickly want to talk about the entrances, which were spectacular. Pinnacle turning up, Four Horsemen style in a limo or Evolution, pick your stable, and they came out, looking great. MJF, a nice little touch, had his Burberry knee pads on. It was unusual to see him not in his normal kind of attire, a bit more of a street fight look. But then the better entrance belonged to the Inner Circle, who were repelling down the side of the stadium, and it was the massive logo spread across the Golden Lights of the Inner Circle. Looked great. A bit of a scary moment where Jericho fell very quickly, very fast when he was coming down, so have a look for that, particularly in GIF form, because it's quite funny to see him just bouncing backwards and forwards. So then the match began after that great entrance. Take your pick from the highlights. It wasn't quite as good, like we said, as the original Stadium Stampede, because that was very difficult to recreate that lightning in a bottle moment and what led up to the original Stampede and why it even happened in the first place. So yeah, perhaps it was them trying to do the same thing, maybe too soon after the original one, but good match. Sammy Guerrero he's been considered like the hero of the Inner Circle for this, and possibly the highlight of the night. He had some great interactions with Shawn Spears, some really nice looking moves. He kind of did like a run up the wall, flip over his head at one point, some good kind of kung fu style looking stuff. Sammy's very good at doing that. Predictably, Hager and Wardlow went off against each other, so they had another bit of a big man battle, and that's going to lead to another match between them. Hager's called him out to make it an MMA match, which would be very interesting to see how Wardlow does in that style match. And yeah, between them, there were some good moments. I particularly enjoyed FTR and Santana Ortiz in the bar. There was some good moments. It felt a bit like a nightclub scrap that I may have seen in my time. So yeah, take your pick, really. In the end, Inner Circle won. I think that had to happen after Blood and Guts. We kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. And again, continuing this theme of perhaps predictable but fun matches. Let me know what you thought of it as a closing thing. It was a feel-good ending. But, do you think it was good or better than the first one? Where do you think this leads those two factions now? And, do you think it was the right way to send fans home?
Yeah, I think we'll end with the first. We'll start with your end one. Yeah, it was the right way to end it. Feel good moment. Obviously, you could argue the women's match could have gone on last.
Yeah.
But the Stampede needed to, with the entrances especially, needed to go on last. It was the right way to do it because obviously they're wanting to do more with it, so it had to have the Inner Circle win. There were certain points that I thought were quite good, but overall, did it beat Stampede 1? I'm not too sure. But again, Stampede 1 was done differently. Like when we had the Matt Hardy where he was coming back with different versions of himself. We didn't have. It wasn't. And then we had the Young Bucks doing the back suplex. Entire field. It was different type of match because obviously you had fans, so you had to interact with stuff that had been pre-recorded and stuff that's been done there and then. I think it did what it needed to do. I think fans were happy. I was happy with it. But if you were going to compare it to what was done previously, I think it didn't lose out as in like it wasn't a bad match. But if you're going to sit them side by side for what they were able to achieve and for what they did with what's going on in the world and for what they were able to do in the amount of time that they did, I think it's up there. It sits side by side with it, but the first one would have edged ever so slightly better.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was nice. There was some funny moments, but yeah, there was something about the original one that felt so unique and so of its time. Like you could just tell they improvised that, and it was magic happening in the moment. And this one felt like you're trying to recreate that magic, and it came across as a little bit hollow, perhaps. But yeah, it was a good match. And if the Inner Circle want to make the Stampede their match, like that's their thing, then yeah, that's great. But as we said, perhaps it would have been better to lead to Blood and Guts rather than the other way around. And these Stampede matches can come across as they have their funny moments too, and again in this blood feud that's just going to continue now. How much comedy do we want to see? But it was the right thing to have the Inner Circle win. It goes on, this feud, and now they're going to break down into smaller feuds, with the predictable combinations of people. So all I want to see out of this, I think, is the Pinnacle carry on being a success, but really I want to see MJF come off of this looking strong. Ultimately I think he has to win this war overall against Jericho. The other guys in the team, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, who comes out on top, but ultimately I need to see MJF still look strong, if not stronger, coming out of this whole thing. But you can see how it's a long-term feud, and it allows them to just keep going with this while everything else happens around them, and it keeps them out of these title hunts for now. So satisfying, and overall a good show. But I suppose my criticism, half criticism, was that we all knew who was going to win most of these matches, but it was still a lot of fun leading to that. And I think we'd said this, hadn't we? We'd said that we knew who was going to win a lot of these matches, but we still expected a good show, which it was. So I'm looking forward to the future pay-per-views with the AEW All Out and Full Gear. And excitingly, moving to a new show in Rampage. And what Rampage is and what it will be, I have no idea. But AEW continues to grow. The pay-per-view successes are there. So, I welcome it. And, this was another strong showing. And I think they've got lots of lines in the fire still. So they're looking really good this year. I mean, the return of the fans, the momentum is there now. So very much a good time for AEW at the moment as a fan, and to be part of their staff as well. So, congratulations to them on another well-ran pay-per-view. No one could really criticize it, except for the fact that perhaps it was a little predictable. But the fans seemed to buy it in their droves. Tony Khan will be very pleased, I'm sure. So do you want to take us home, Jolly?
So so that was it. Thank you for this bumper one. Obviously, we have had 3 pay-per-views. But thank you very much for joining us. As ever, myself and Big Chocky T are on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter. The Bear Chocky T is our @sign. We are part of the Jonas Podcasting Network, as we said to start with. Again, just look on there. If you search for them, we'll put the link in the description below. You'll find a fantastic group of people on there, like ourselves, who are passionate about wrestling. And all I can say is thank you very much for joining us. If you have any comments, please put them down down below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and as I said, all the rest of us on the Jonas Podcasting Network. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for a bit more Impact and AEW wrestling. Thank you very much.
Bye.